Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wiltshire today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, brother. How are you? I'm
Oh.
feeling kind of like the seasons are changing. I'm wore out, like this is my least favorite time of year. It's the sunlight's kind of dying off. It's raining every day. I don't know.
You feel an impending darkness. That's the
do.
election, though. It's not just
Oh my God.
the shorter
I
days.
But bro, I was just listening to Kamala Harris duke it out with Brett Baer, and like you know me, man. There's no winners here.
She killed it. She did great.
She killed it. All right. I can't wait till the restarts happening because it's going to be happening, brother. I'm not kidding. It just look. She's avoided certain unfriendly style media. She's avoided lots of tough questions, and I think Brett Baer got a chance to ask her some of the tougher questions, like, "Hey, these things you're saying, you've been in office for 3.5 years. Like, why weren't we hearing about this before?" And brother,
Brett Baer doing actual journalism, like,
I thought so.
Wow,
like,
good for him. Every other interview, man, just softballs.
Yeah,
every single time.
Well, Stephen Colbert and Howard Stern, like, I don't know what kind of I don't know what that stuff was, but whatever.
Yeah.
But yes, call me daddy. Like she's getting herself out there. I do think she senses trouble. I think that, and look, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. She wasn't a cackling fool.
Right.
She stood her ground on certain issues. I think some people that already like her are going to find that appealing. I think that people that don't like her are going to be like, well, she didn't answer any of the questions. It was constantly like, how about what have you done? How about what's going to be different between you and Joe Biden? Like those kind of questions are, that's a tough spot to be running from. To admit that inflation is a problem, to admit, and arguably, you and I know, like, they don't have the immigration issue even close to correct. Like, they lie and they lie and they lie and they all use it to manipulate, and then they lie some more. And so all she's got is lies built on lies on that. And it's like,
on the profession, they call it spin. Okay. Like, it's just a little bit of spin.
Yeah.
That's all. It's not lies exactly. Just,
okay.
A little bit of polish to that turd. That's all.
Yeah, that's it. They're shining it. And so she did a great job. She was very emotional and very, but not like I'm knocking her. Like, she was appropriately emotional. I do think her. Right. Yeah, I do think her answers are going to be not playing well in Peoria over the next few days, and I think that she's might arguably lose some support. Some people got to wake up. I don't know, but it's hard. Like, the choice is her or Donald Trump, and I get where people are coming from when they don't like Trump. You know that. You know what I mean?
Have to pick between those two, Tim. You don't.
They could have the least of many evils. They could.
That's right.
They could vote for Chase Oliver, and they'd be better off. They really would be better off. Like, whatever.
Well, I know. You have your criticism.
I do. I don't even. Sometimes
he's a lot better than the alternatives.
Yeah. He's the least of those three evils, at the very least.
Yeah,
I'm the least of many evils, though. But
tonight,
I'm the Freedom Variant.
we're like 4 minutes into this, and we haven't started the actual show.
All right, let's go.
We should eventually do that. Because we've been promising to talk about, like, some pharmaceutical industry stuff. So we're going to do a bit of that for our first segment.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about some news related to the medical industry too. Maybe we'll get to more of the politics stuff. We'll see.
Yeah.
Y'all know how it goes. If you have a great story to sidetrack us, we love that too. Please send us in a new direction. But we'll we'll get started in just a second. And we're gonna talk about some of the big issues with the show we've been promising to talk about forever.
Yeah.
All right. So let's.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Willis here today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Baron O'Connor.
I'm here, brother. I just want to say hello to the WSL audience, to the people that are going to be listening to this on Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, and X in the future. We appreciate everything you do. Kevin and I have had some conversations about how our medical system is corrupt, controlled, and broken. What do you think about that? And we've got news that kind of demonstrates it, don't you think? All right, what's going on with this feed here? Am I out or are you out? That Kevin. So anyways, we're probably going to have to do a hard restart of the show because I think we lost Kevin. Whatever happened there, I'm sure he was saying something wildly interesting. I don't know. Have you guys checked out the Brett Bauer interview with Kamala Harris? We were talking about that ahead of the show, and it is absolutely wild. Let me see if well, now he's completely gone, guys. This is a tough way to start the show. Let me see if he sent me a message on Facebook. Not yet. I know he was having like computer problems when we were getting started, and anyway. So guys, the big issue was, of course, Brett Baier was beating up all over Kamala Harris on the immigration policy. And it was a wild conversation. I would suggest everybody checks it out. But the tough questions, like, weren't you the border czar? Like, you guys let in 6 million immigrants. Like, it's wanting answers to the big things. She handled the tough issue. Do you guys think she's stuck in like what would arguably be a loser spiral or a downward spiral, where the fact of the matter is that she got a nice bump off of her whole like election, coronation for the DNC, but then like she kind of tied up with Donald Trump, maybe pulled ahead of him a little bit, but now it seems like her numbers are kind of fading and she's starting to have to go on. Like, look, I listened to her when she was on Howard Stern. I listened to her when she went on Colbert. It was like, these things were if you can't get a friendlier audience than that. You literally, it was not any kind of interview. There was not any kind of tough question. It was all, oh, Vice President Kamala Harris, thank you very much for being here. Here, have a sip of beer with me, All right, let's see what we've got. Some comments out there already. Yeah, man, I don't know what goes on with Facebook. Sometimes you get your notifications from your favorite people. Like, I always get a notification on my phone from Kevin whenever he goes live. But sometimes you simply don't get them. Like, I still have notices turned on for Larry Sharp. I never get notices when he's going live anymore. I don't know what's up with that. Zuckerberg, the great libertarian of our time. I'm rambling on. I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, good. I'm like, man, can you still not hear me right now? Because that's ridiculous. I don't know why my mic wasn't working.
Your mic went out?
Freaked out. Yeah. I don't know.
It was kind of wild because it looked like you were going off. It looked like you had something important to say. And I'm like, and now where'd you go? Get back in here. Knock this. There he goes. Anyways, so I don't know what goes on with this great Zuckerberg platform where he all of a sudden has decided to be a libertarian, but nothing has changed for libertarians. Like, the Otsego County Libertarian Party LP page was blocked and banned, and he hasn't lifted the ban. And all we did was post spicy, hilarious memes, So I just don't get it. But also, like, I don't know, Twitter's way more exciting, Matt. If you're ever on there, follow me at Tim for Senate, or at Kevin Wilson ROC. We are finding groups coming together. We're finding people from New York State. It's working out. Kevin, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I don't know what to do with this.
I don't know if I might just like duck out again, though. I don't know.
You don't know what's going on. Well, I'll keep this going for a little bit if you want to try to, get your video working and get things straightened out. I'm okay with that.
Wi-Fi is unstable.
Oh, that will do it, bro.
So that might
as
be,
we've seen in the past, But I'll plug some things I've got coming up. I could talk about some of our subjects if we can restart the show if you come back on, like whatever you want to do. I'm going to handle a bunch of comments. Yeah. So Shelly, how are you? Look, yeah. So that I'm not gonna lie. I think that this is an accurate assessment. Shelly out on YouTube says she started campaigning too late, and the Democrats are even not voting for her. She plagiarizes everything and changes policies daily. So, as always, there's Tinder in reserve when it comes to these big political moments, right? So now all of a sudden, people are talking about how she got caught plagiarizing, and they're going back through her old, doctoral theses or her Are you there?
Maybe.
We'll see. But all of these things are real. This is stuff that they've saved that they're going to start dropping like bombs on the political process, and they're real. Shelley was talking about how they kind of caught Kamala plagiarizing some stuff.
Yeah, I did.
And he's gone. I don't know what he's doing, man. But anyway, so yeah, that's real. And look, here's another good point coming in from Shelley. A lot of Democrats are writing in RFK, and honestly, for good reason. Like, look, that guy is not my guy. He terrifies me about the Second Amendment, even though he came back around and made, statements that he's pro 2A and that he's a gun owner and all those things. But like, he's still a Democrat. You know what I mean? But look, I do think some of the things that he brings to the table that I find a lot of value in, especially as an aging adult male in our society, is that he's trying to shine a light on I would say the global food cartel or big food and the FDA revolving door for big pharma. And honestly, so it's very exciting to have him in the race, to have him having confronted the absolute denigration of communication. Like Kamala Harris was on Brett Barr trying to talk about moving forward and being nice to people. And it's like the entire Democratic Party has been demonizing MAGA Republicans since 2016. Hakeem Jeffries is still spewing the most divisive rhetoric that I've ever seen any one person spew. And so they haven't fixed it. And she's going to pretend that they're not participating in harsh rhetoric, which she was making fun of Trump for, which probably is fair. Kevin, hey, wow, every single time. What's up with this guy? You there?
Yeah, technically.
Technically. We're coming in and out and in and out, brother.
Yeah, this is pretty obnoxious.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. What's happening?
Yeah, keep saying my Wi-Fi is unstable. My devices aren't being recognized.
It's you know what it is? It's the feds. This was going to be our best show ever, and if the feds have gotten a hold of us,
they have. That must be it. There's no other reasonable explanation. It's just the feds have decided to shut us down.
Yeah. So the show's already kind of blown. Let's say hello to Brian Hoyt. Brian, I got some. You probably caught some wind of it. Our buddy Brian LaRusso once again has, and we're going to do a live show about it. But once again, Brian LaRusso has stuck a stick in a hornet's nest, and they are buzzing all over the place. I'm very excited. He and I are in communications now about doing a show. I'll put it live on Facebook. I'm afraid it's the kind of show that Facebook, I don't know. There's allegations of him well, there's not allegations of him threatening people. There's allegations of people feeling threatened by his behavior of exposing corruption, e- finding ethics violations of look, they Hartwick wrote a law about like no bid contracts for town board members. He exposed that law, is looking to get it changed. People are really upset about that. And weirdly enough, he's trying to play it straight up for these people. And they just, I don't know. So they viciously attacked him at a town board meeting. It's hard to think of if you guys have seen Brian LaRusso on the show with me, or if it's probably many of you know Brian. You know that he's no shrinking violet, right? He's not the kind of guy that's going to back down from a fight. He's not the kind of guy that's going to back down to threats. He's not the kind of guy. Guys, when you see the show with Brian and you guys on Twitter, I'll really try to make because we get a lot of views from Twitter now. I'll try to really, I want everybody to meet Brian LaRusso because he is epic. He's hilarious. He's a little bit aggressive, but he's trying to do the right thing for his community. I have some other friends who might be watching that are very much into small town liberation concepts. He's a guy that has taken that bull by the horns and run with it. Like he's dragging that bull's face right into the dirt. Like, I'm not even kidding. It's pretty impressive. So,
So here's the thing, Tim. Like, my computer keeps telling me your connection is unstable.
I'm unstable,
but that's weird because I'm plugged into my Ethernet, so I don't know why my connection is
unstable. I don't even know. I don't know. You want to do you want to try to reboot it? And I'll just kind of try to hang here and wait, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I just need to do a reset.
All right, because that's what Brian Hoyt says, and he's definitely a computer expert. I mean, have you tried unplugging it and plugging it back in? That's what everybody wants to know right now.
I know, like, do I have any pending Windows updates? No, I just got a new one, which is part of the reason why we're starting late. And this is why you should never update your Windows computers. Just don't update them. It's a scam. No, I'm kidding. You probably should, but like it did.
I agree with you. I don't ever update my stuff. Ever. Never. I don't. They don't need to know. I know when they update, they like take all my files and they send them directly to the FBI. I know it.
That must be it.
But honestly, I don't have any file, which they can, I guess. It doesn't really bother me,
Yeah, but
I've got nothing to hide.
I'm gonna close out. I'm gonna be back in like a minute.
All right, or two. I think I can hold down the fort till then.
Yeah, you've been doing it valiantly until now. All right. Well.
All right, here we go. Here's going to be the question of the day. Can I give my buddy Jared Anderson a Chase Oliver pitch? I don't know if you caught it, but I think in the beginning of the show, in the first 4 minutes, Jared, I said he's the least of these three evils. So if we go to Kamala Harris, Trump, and Chase, he's the least of those three evils. Now, arguably, he is relatively very libertarian there, and he's relatively consistently libertarian. There is a faction of the Libertarian Party, as you know, that are very, I would say, beltway libertarians, very Koch libertarians, very reason libertarians, which all of them on some level have value to me, even though they drive me crazy with some of their communication strategies. Chase is not by any stretch of the imagination the worst of the beltway libertarians. He's very consistent, very consistently anti-war. He says a lot of good things, and then occasionally he says something that gets under my skin. That's a pitch. That's a pitch right there. Vote for that guy. My wife is out there, Kevin. She's getting to see me ad lib the entire show. That's a picture of my buddy Sean that passed away a couple weeks ago, and her.
Yeah. But sorry that you're getting to see the worst show.
the worst show ever. But look,
yeah, you know what? Why don't we just we'll start over.
Let's start over.
20 minutes. We'll start the show over.
Yeah,
I'll just go in from there. It's gonna be a mess to like edit most of that anyway. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. That might get released as like a bonus, like a Tim only episode.
20 minutes of Tim yammering on.
20 minutes of Tim vamping while Kevin tries to fix his computer.
I did good though, man. Like at first I thought I was just gonna flop, sweat, choke, and but thanks to the comments, guys, it kept me going.
All right, Tim's a pro, guys. Back in the day, Tim used to do these shows solo sometimes.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
you still got it, Tim.
Yeah, I still got it. All right.
Yeah. All right, let's go back in. I'll start off the intro. 3, 2. Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, brother. And look, the show must go on, regardless of the competition out there, regardless of the problems that we have. And look, I was saying, thank you to WYSL. Thank you to our friends on X. Thank you to the Spotify listeners that listen at a different time. Kevin and I have been promising to talk about the broken state of affairs when it comes to our healthcare system. And yet again, Kevin, we have another perfect example of how, honestly, it's a little bit of absurdity in a way that in a heavily regulated market, a necessary product is in short supply when it's basically only in short supply here. Like it, and it's
United
affecting
States,
local hospitals, you know?
It is, yeah. It's starting to affect hospitals all throughout New York State, including Rochester area ones, and I think the ones down in your area too.
Yeah.
And that's a specific type of IV fluid, right? That's only made 60% of the supply is made in an area of North Carolina that was devastated by the hurricane.
Yeah.
So, and we talked about this in like other contexts too, like where we have these industries that are highly regulated, and you end up with products that are relatively simple to make, but highly regulated and kind of sensitive because of medical area. We talked about this like baby formula too.
Yeah.
And now we end up with a weak point. And this is a weak point kind of sold as a strong point. Like, oh, like look at like we manufacture all this stuff in the United States, and that makes us great because we can do that. But like we create situations where it ends up being fragile, where we end up putting all of our eggs in one basket. And when something bad happens in one place, now suddenly it's a crisis all across the country.
Correct. And that's exactly what we have. Certain IV fluids made solely in North Carolina. Well, I shouldn't say solely because they're made all over the world. But now it was a GlaxoSmithKline. Which big pharma company? I had the
I don't know. I closed out all of my tabs because of technical difficulties.
Which perfectly that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So it is an IV shortage, which, guys, to be honest with you, according to the article that I've picked up from CBS News, this IV shortage was going on before the hurricane, but thanks to the hurricane, it has been absolutely decimated. We literally have surgeries being put off, medical treatments being put off because of
started ending elective surgeries. And as we know from like COVID, like some of those elective surgeries aren't exactly elective. It just means they're not like you're gonna die if you don't have them like immediately.
Right.
But
Even cancer surgeries are on some level elective. You can put them off a little bit longer. So according to the article, the CBS News article, some 60% of the nation's IV supplies had relied on production from the plant run by medical supplier Baxter before it was damaged by the storm. So now, at the very least, the production at that facility has been turned down to practically nothing. And so the weirdest part about this to me is that they have to go to the food. Baxter is a multinational supplier of medical supplies. They run plants all over the world, and they have to go get permission from the Food and Drug Administration to import their own IV fluids from its other plants around the world. Now, I've never understood that. I've always felt like that's a significant problem with our medical market. Kevin and I have talked about that in the past. So they're invoking the Defense Production Act. And so that allows the FDA to just say, yeah, go ahead and do what you should have already been doing. You see what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
I mean,
like,
it's one of those fun things where it's like, if you hadn't been in the way in the first place, we wouldn't have to have these extraordinary measures to do this. It's the same thing. We bring this up every time with the Jones Act too. Like, we could just not have this thing, and then we would just have some resiliency and markets that are able to meet these opportunities fairly quickly. Instead, there's again hospitals that aren't getting their shipments and are running out and they're rationing. I mean, they're doing things like oral hydration, which is basically drink some Gatorade. Like literally in some cases, like they tell them to just drink Gatorade, but
yeah, sure, they have alternatives, but
Mhm.
Gatorade is like part of that toxic poison food chain that I'm just like, me and RFK are railing against.
Gatorade's awesome. I would endorse Gatorade. I would.
That's fine. I'm just saying there may be some
It's
like
it's
dyes
sugar
in
and
it that are
salt.
good for you. Yeah, well,
No, the
it is
dyes are
good.
good for me. This is
It's
it's the light blue Gatorade, the Frost.
yeah,
It's the best Gatorade. I don't know what the flavor is. No one really knows what the flavor is, but whatever it is, it's good. It's not natural, and I like it that way.
well, it gives me heartburn, so I've hated it ever since then, and I refuse to drink it. So I assume it's got to be toxic poison, but oral hydration is a viable alternative. But when we're doing medical surgery, you need to have on stacked up
Yeah.
bags and bags of dextrose and saline, and you got to be ready to go with these things. And so they're literally postponing, canceling, or and not necessarily rescheduling these things, and that's actually pretty scary. You know?
Yeah. It is. No, it's a frightening thing, and and what's funny is like I've had conversations with people like, oh, COVID proved that like our supply chain isn't resilient, and I'm like, okay, in a way, yes, but, like,
Right.
let's think about the reasons why. Why can't markets respond to situations like this? It's not that markets can't respond to situations like this, and this is funny, this is actually a conversation I was having with the Republican congressional candidate in my area, who's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, like, capitalism can't respond to, like, certain types of crises," including, like, what we saw with COVID with its inability to, like, respond with, medical supply production, like, again, think about why we weren't able to do it. It's not that the US didn't have the capacity to do that. It's that producing stuff in the US is extremely difficult. It's difficult for us to, you know, change over production to something like masks or medical supplies or, but like in things that are a little bit less regulated, like hand sanitizer, we had a ton of that. Like
Yeah.
easily,
Well,
all the distilleries are all right. Like, yeah, we can make that. Great, cool. Like that's a need right now, and we can make money off of it. Awesome. All right, we're gonna make a bunch of it.
and arguably they could have gotten trouble for that. To be honest
Yeah.
with you, if they wanted to enforce the laws as written, those people that were making hand sanitizer, besides the prisoners in New York State, because they're slave
Mm.
labor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about that. Oh my god.
But I'm just saying, if they had wanted to enforce the law, and if they want to circle back around and make somebody look bad, they could enforce those laws that are on the books about what they did to make hand sanitizer. Like literally, it was illegal. Like
Yeah.
they it's a wild thing that this system that we have is so tightly regulated over things that people are going to use anyway. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. Like arguably,
And
I had this thought, like, couldn't I just start making bags of saline? All I need is like a little cryovac thing,
probably
some
not.
of the
You do
bags.
need to get it right. I'll say, like,
Yeah,
with some, like, medical stuff, you do need to get it right. Like, it's gotta
sure.
be, like, made really well. Someone's gotta quality control it. So, like,
Yeah,
hospitals probably aren't gonna buy Tim's bags of saline that are in, like, little Ziploc baggies, right? Like, it's
right.
they're
Okay.
so, like but, like, there might be a company in Canada or in France or in South America that, like, is gonna make perfectly great saline that we should be able to easily import, like, in situations where there is, a crisis or a shortage, right? And I
Correct.
don't think
Yeah.
that makes us necessarily weaker as a country to do that. Like, I think it's good to have healthy trade relationships around the world so that there's some resiliency when, like, the domestic supply takes a hit for one reason or another, and then there's alternatives to get a much needed good.
Yeah, I'm like free trade is anti-war, bro. Like I'm telling you, if we're trading people for valuable commodities, we have no reason to fight them. Like that's to me one of the main reasons. Government getting in the way of free trade is just one of the many problems that we face every single day. The Jones Act makes every American's life more expensive then it needs to be every single day. And people in Alaska, all of your stuff is more expensive, and all of your stuff is multiply more expensive because of the Jones Act. It's just absurd. So yeah, I get it. But like, what if I hired a private certification firm to come in and certify that my saline is as good as Baxter's saline? Wouldn't that be corrupt?
I mean, that might be, but like again, if you hire a private firm, like I mean, let's say like we don't have the FDA regulating and stuff. We're gonna go down the libertarian rabbit hole. You hire a private firm that says, "Yep, they're counting their money on side. Yep, Tim saline seems perfectly great. Don't worry about it. It's totally trustworthy, right?" Like a lot of hospitals and organizations are going to have their own consumer protection, like vetting services that like they're going to use that they trust, right?
Mhm.
And so now, could that happen where someone takes a bribe and like just is pay to play type stuff? Yeah, like that can still happen. It can happen now though. Like there's no reason it can't happen with the government, with the FDA right now. Like corruption is still possible. We've talked about stories of corruption, and I know I'm generally optimistic, but I also recognize corruption is still very real.
Sure, but
And
like, what is it?
government should pay the people like everyone else.
ISO 2000 or ISO 2001 is at Underwriters Laboratories. These are not necessarily government agencies that we all rely on for the quality of our manufactured goods. Okay, you Underwriters Laboratory certifies your electrical products. Period.
Yeah.
Without them, it's not the government going in and rubber stamping it. It's an agency with integrity that specializes in offering certifications of quality.
Yeah.
We could certainly do that.
We do that. I
Hospitals
mean,
could
like,
say, if you don't have ISO-H certification on your IV saline solutions, we're not going to buy it. So you have to work out the certification from ISO-H. Like, arguably, I just made up ISO-H, but you know what I mean? Some sort of
whatever
standardized
it is,
hospital
right?
deal.
Yeah,
And
but
I'd feel safe with that. And I think it would be cheaper, than the FDA interfering and controlling a market.
yeah, and again, like people always like imagine these scenarios that like what you'd laid out, like, oh, like, but what if there's corruption? Like that can happen in the government too. The same thing can happen. It's still just all people who are subject to the same like vices and greed and like other issues that can happen.
Yes.
Like again, they're not immune from that. And in fact, having other competition helps make that situation less likely too. If you have legitimately competing agencies for the same type of certification service, then like if one becomes a problem, then you can say, okay, we have this other alternative, and now this is going to be the new gold standard for what we trust.
The opioid crisis is rife with a story like that. Sackler Pharmaceuticals and the agreement that they got from, I wish I could remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but the head of the FDA to state that there was not any real proof that opioids were actually addictive, then leaves the FDA and goes and makes $500,000 a year back in the 70s at Sackler Pharmaceuticals. Like, and that revolving door still happens. It's still going on where executives leave the FDA or go to the FDA from a pharmaceutical company. And
Yeah.
I don't trust that.
There's a revolving door there. And actually that segues well into some of the stuff we were talking about with pharmaceuticals. Cause like like generally like, yeah, that type of stuff happens. I think the way the American system works, like when the revolving door stuff happens, when the regulatory capture stuff happens, it's not great. Again, and there's plenty to criticize about that. My thing about like the cost of a lot of pharmaceuticals in the United States being expensive
Yeah.
is that like the way the process normally works is like the US ends up effectively subsidizing the development of these drugs for the entire world because they get to charge more in the United States for a variety of reasons. And then that allows them to pay back the research it took to get that drug, which is expensive in part because of like extremely onerous processes that the FDA puts on that research and development and approval. Some of which I get. I know I like, unlike libertarians kind of got weird during COVID about like FDA approval of stuff, but I still generally lean more towards like it should probably be a little bit simpler and a little bit less expensive for new drugs to come to the market most of the time.
Yeah.
You increase the risk a little bit, but also like you're able to get like new drugs that are effective for other stuff too. So that's what ends up happening is it's really expensive to get through it. So in the United States, we end up charging a bit more, and it's also we're charging a bit more in a way that most people don't actually see directly because you're not really seeing, like, again, when you and I pay for our Eliquis, right? We're both on this drug. We're not paying the like $750 a bottle for Eliquis. What we're seeing is like, oh, it's $30, it's $50, whatever, because pharmacy benefit managers and insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies have all made this negotiation to like what it's actually going to be and who's going to get paid what and when and who gets the kickbacks. And then at the end of the day, like we only pay that $30 and then it just gets thrown into like our insurance coverage cost, right?
Correct.
Like, which we're not seeing that. Like, why is insurance so expensive? It's for stuff like that, right? And it's a whole like messy system where like there's things that like sort of make sense, but things that are corrupt, and it's like really tough to untangle. And part of it funds like good stuff, but part of it ends up meaning that we're paying way more for health insurance than we really ought to, right? So if we can disentangle that, open up the market on the pharmaceutical side, and I know your favorite guy, Mark Cuban, is trying to do a little bit of that.
Sure.
That would be great. Now, I'm going to ramble on a little bit more and I'll let you respond, which is in terms of like, can we just import drugs from Canada? Can we just import drugs from Europe?
We could.
The reason why those are cheaper, though, is because they have single payer healthcare systems and the government negotiates a like bulk rate for those drugs and says we will not pay more for this. And the alternative to that is sometimes like we won't pay more than this amount for this drug. The alternative is, okay, well, this drug's just not available in this system, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what ends up happening. But because the pharmaceutical companies have made enough money off of the American system, they're willing to kind of play ball in some of these other places. And they have like guaranteed like, okay, you're going to do enough volume where this makes sense for us to make this deal. We make a little bit off of it. We make the big money off the American market, but we can work with all these governments to do that. So like the only way that works is when you have government controlled healthcare systems that are like massive buyers that end up price fixing in their countries. Which the U.S. is starting to trend towards during the Biden administration, where they came out with that whole list of like, oh, look, the diabetes medication is this much now, and this other medication is this much. That's what they're doing. There's trade-offs to doing that.
Sure.
And the trade-off is that like you might not get as much development in terms of pharmaceutical in the United States. And I'm not saying that's like that might be worth it, but like
that's what they always threaten us with. I'll be honest with you. That's something that
you don't think that's real. You don't think that's a legit trade-off?
Well, because first of all, Eliquis is made in like Norway or something like that. So just so to begin there, that's one thing. I'm going to say something that's counterintuitive, and I'd like to get your take on it, and maybe we get some comments on it. But regulated industries are incentivized to increase expense. Would you agree with that basic premise? Do you feel like does that make sense to you? Like if the government agrees that I should be in business and that my product is so important that they say I should get 5% profit on my efforts, how do I make more money? Right? By growing my expenses. So what sorts of things are tax deductible? What sorts of things are important for me to spend money on? That would be research and development. That would be lobbying. And that would be
and there is a lot of lobbying, I'll say.
Oh
like,
my God. Wait till we get to that because I
billions
got that
and
number.
billions. Like it is crazy, which again, they're only doing that because it's profitable to do that, right? And that's corrupt.
Yeah.
That's a big problem. I agree.
Yeah.
You know, I said and then again, I think we're both gonna agree there's like massive problems with the health.
Oh yeah.
I think like our difference is like this much.
Yeah, I just want everybody to go down I want everybody to go down my conspiracy hole. I already kind of warned you, like you may not automatically agree with what I'm saying, but it may plant a seed in your brain where we see that this corruption is actually as bad as it is actually worse than everybody realizes. That because we captured the markets, because the pharmaceutical company is ecstatic that the market is captured. They get to grow their expenses at, by making politicians rich, Kevin, by funding the 7 counties outside of Washington, D.C., where the richest people in the world, the richest 7 richest counties in the entire country are. And we're the richest country in the world. So, like, imagine that. So, I mean, how much time do we have left in this segment?
We have 5 seconds. So
Okay,
we're going to have to
we
save
got-
this for the next segment. Thanks for joining us here on The Free Solution. We're going to be back in just a minute. Talk to you soon. So I'm glad you asked that, because it's like, wait, we are coming up on time.
I actually, for some reason, because I'm so in tune, because I had to run the show for 17 minutes and 37 seconds by myself, I was in tune to, we
Who's
started
counting?
at 20 and we need to be done at about 20 for this to work out. So,
Yep.
all right.
So, all right, let's just jump right back into it, because this show's going long anyway.
All right. I'm down
All
with
right.
that.
Yeah, we'll go back in like 5 seconds. Let's see. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
Oh, I'm here, Kevin. And look, we've got on to one of my favorite subjects that I don't get to really discuss often enough, and that is the power of regulation and the incentives that it provides. So, as I was saying before the break, and once again, thank you to the WSL audience. Thank you to the people on YouTube. Thank you to the people on X that are joining us tonight to listen to our libertarian presentation of what real problems and real solutions. And we already came up with one last segment where I'm going to make IV saline in my kitchen sink, and I'm going to get it certified by ISO 2001 H7, and then I am going to solve the problem. So what we're talking about is how the FDA basically controls markets on some level, not on some level, to the detriment of efficiency. Okay. And so now when we're getting into this pharmaceutical situation, number one, I want to point out that they spend $400 million a year trying to get legislation passed, the lobbying that benefits them. Now, we get into these captured markets, we get what is incentivized. Like, these things are regulated. We accept that pharmaceuticals exist. We want to control how much they charge, but what that does is incentivize increased pricing for the captured market of the US consumer. And insurance companies are in on the game because they're also regulated, right? They also are incentivized to increase prices. So I made a joke about it, or I've put it out there, that one of the things that the system saw as incredibly dangerous was Donald Trump experimenting with the control that pharmaceuticals and insurance companies have over the U.S. consumer. I know that it sounds crazy, but if we look at the absolute numbers, $400 million in lobbying, something like.
And what's wild too, you threw out that number, which I thought was actually higher, but it's more than the defense industry, which is crazy, right? Like, you think of the defense industry as being like, again, that's an even more captured market, because like defense is just for the US government, like, okay, like very limited. But yeah, there's more than that. So like there's a lot of money to be made in that.
And hang on, let's just talk about the evil NRA and how much they're lobbying. They're literally a lobbying firm. They spend like maybe a couple $1 million a year trying to get access to politicians. The pharmaceutical industry is number one by practically 100%. Number two is big tech. And I don't think anybody's surprised by these two things. Big tech is writing the regulations that are going to benefit them for now and into the future. So Number one, we have incentivized increase in costs because the politicians are already agreeing that these are necessary, vital industries. So they're like, for this regulation, we will promise that you can make a profit. So profit's done on a percentage basis. That's how it gets written into law. So if at the end of 2024, Merck goes to, Congress and says, well, geez, we only made 2% profit this year. We need to raise all of our prices on everything that you agree with. They're just like, wink, nod, go ahead. And
Yeah.
remember to leave a campaign donation on your
I
way
mean,
out.
sometimes it's not quite like that, right? Like a lot of
Sure,
times it's like the way
simplifying.
it'll work out is like, okay, well, we need to decide if we can write into the next omnibus package, like whether we can have a price increase. Because again, how this ends up working, and the reason why I'm skeptical of like we just import trucks from Canada is like how it works is Medicaid and Medicare are the biggest buyers of pharmaceuticals, right? Like because they're government insurance programs. And that's how they end up. That's why they lobby so much, is because they want to be included on the list of pharmaceuticals that can be purchased, and they want to lobby for the price that they want in order for it to be profitable, which the government, because again, everyone wins with this because the government gets to say we negotiate a great price, and then the pharmaceutical company gets big. Shucks, you sure whittled us down, wink. And
winking and nodding all the way to the bank.
and for the people who benefit from that program, like sometimes they get a good deal, sometimes they don't, depending on how much you're actually paying for out of pocket. And then like the actual cost of the drug outside of that system is not always subject to market forces in the same way, because as we talked about earlier, again, you're not really seeing the cost. Like
Right.
there's a good like first of all, I'll recommend another podcast series that really goes into this. It's Why We Can't Have Nice Things. It's a Reason podcast series that's going into a whole bunch of this stuff. But like there's no price transparency. Like imagine if you went to the grocery store and you got all your stuff, and then suddenly it's just like, oh yeah, like that bill, like just pay like $5 for it now and you'll get billed for the rest of it later. Like you have no
Correct.
idea like what you're really paying. Like you wouldn't buy groceries like that. You wouldn't trust a grocery store to like, well, I don't know. I need to know what I'm actually paying. Like, what am I gonna end up paying in the end? But with medical, like that's what we do all the time. Like, oh shoot, yeah, like I'll just pay my copay, and then I don't know. I know I'm gonna get like another bill for other stuff later, but who knows? And
Yeah.
you can't really like shop around for some of this stuff. Like for pharmaceuticals, you can a little bit, which is why like Trump did a good thing when he was trying to push for price transparency in the pharmaceutical market.
Yeah.
And again, I appreciate things like what Mark Cuban is doing with his like cost plus drugs type of stuff, like because there's some
Yeah.
transparency in that too. It's just like, okay, we'll buy up a bunch of generics and sell them at a lower profit margin than what you normally see, like with all these negotiated services that end up
Right.
like just adding layers and layers of bureaucracy and like
Yeah.
people who need to get their cut between you and like purchasing the drug from the company.
Can I just criticize Mark Cuban for a second? Because what
You always
he's
do. Can't help
yeah,
yourself.
I know, but look what he's doing to get his cost plus drugs in front of Kamala Harris is literally campaigning for her for free. Like there is another perverse incentive where he is out there saying, I'm starting a new business, cost plus drugs, which will build off of the already broken American system and help me build another $1 billion business. Like
Well, Tim, okay, is it bad if he's actually providing value to people though? Like if it's a better alternative than what we have now
oh no,
by
that's not the part I'm criticizing. The part I'm criticizing is him.
him.
not
Okay,
not
no,
the
but
kid.
take the question seriously though, because like to me it's
Okay.
like I don't care if
Sure. Okay.
pharmaceutical companies make billions. I don't care if Mark Cuban makes billions. Like what I care is like, are they actually providing value, and is there enough effective competition where like you can turn to alternatives if you want to, right? Like again, are they adding value with their service? In the case of like what Mark Cuban is doing right now, again, that might change. He might like just capture the market and do something terrible. But what
Sure.
he's doing right now seems like pretty good. It's like, oh,
Well,
if your stuff is too expensive and there's generics available, like you can go look it up and see like, is this cheaper? Now, I looked it up with one of the other drugs that I'm on. Turns out it's not cheaper
right.
because like, I mean, sort of. It's not cheaper than me paying my, cost through insurance than it would be to go buy them. Now,
Right.
it is cheaper if I were to pay the actual retail
All
price.
right, so my answer is nuance, right? And, what I'm suggesting with my argument today is that the system is a bad platform, and that what Mark Cuban is doing is taking advantage of the system of cozying up to a politician to get his new business in front of the political elite. Now, is it what he's offering arguably a competition thing? Is it arguably better than the regulated market if he takes a little chunk out of it? Yeah, arguably that's better.
Now-
Arguably, I agree with that.
So,
right?
so actually, I will say this, like, because what he's actually trying to do, the part where you're gonna be, see corruption, is he's trying
I
to
know.
say, like,
I'm waiting
hey,
for it.
make me the preferred provider for Medicare and Medicaid because I will save those systems, tens of billions of dollars a year, which happens to be true,
Correct. It does happen
but
to be true.
also,
It's
it's like, but like he's also gonna stand to make billions from like a system that is somewhat broken. And
see, you proved my point right there.
no, I
But
know, like there's part of that, and like again, it's partially true. And like what I would like to see is like, okay, that's interesting. There may need to be a more dynamic system where the government like is basically participating in like real-time auctions to get these like drugs to like different regions or something like that. Like there's like other ways of doing this. Like the ad industry sort of does this
Correct.
stuff, right? Like we do like real-time quick auctions to try to get like the lowest price like inventory for stuff, and you could probably apply the same principles to pharmaceuticals if you had sufficient competition. Now the problem is that between patent law, between FDA regulations, with some of which I understand, but like are really onerous, and in a bunch of other stuff, it's really hard to break into the market. And the only reason
Correct.
Mark Cuban could do it because he had a boatload of money already.
yeah, he scored some big cash recently. Like,
Yeah.
a couple $100 billion or something like that. He did really well. He had to write a check, and he was bragging about it on Twitter, which is another thing. Like, his virtue is amazing. He was bragging about how he had to write the government a check for $237 million because of the sales of some of his businesses. Fine, that's great. It was obviously a political campaign on his part.
Yeah.
So we agree. Also, it's like we're not that far apart. I'm just saying it's just worse than what we're actually
Yeah.
observing. And you're saying, well, Mark Cuban's offering something better. I agree.
Yeah.
I do
I'm
agree.
saying like there are some things that can make the system marginally better, and like the things that Mark Cuban are
Sure.
doing, like and like other folks who are trying to break into that space, like show a better alternative. And I'm saying things could be worse. Like if again, and I've seen libertarians promote this, not just you, like, oh, like let's just import drugs from Canada. Like it's what that's doing is it's just like reinforcing like a more advanced version of the problem that is metastasizing here. Right. Where like it's just like it seems like it's lower prices, but really it's just like locked in price fixing that still ends up with a lot of unnecessary and unclear
Okay, but
pricing on behalf of pharmaceutical
which is fine,
products.
but would that put a lot of value in the hands of Americans who don't have insurance, or who, like, for example, my mom is paying the $750 a month out of her pocket for Eliquis. Okay, so if she could buy her Eliquis from Canada at $132 a month, that would save her $625, like, a month. Now, arguably she can change her insurance and get to where it's a better copay, and she probably will do that, but still,
Yeah, I mean,
there
we haven't even gotten to how the insurance stuff is broken.
right. I
There's
still
a
got to
whole
cover advertising, Kevin. That is another tax deduction that enforces the notion that this system is busted, self-supporting, and traveling in circles.
Do you
Okay,
think pharmaceutical advertising should be illegal?
no, but because it's a regulated market, it's incentivized to spend as much money as humanly possible on advertising to prop up other crappy business models and make politicians rich. In other words,
Eh,
it's $100 billion a year that the collective pharmaceutical spend in the United States on advertising. $100 billion a year. That's money that's it, in a way, it feels like incentivized corruption because it's a regulated business, right? Like, if I had a good drug, like nobody is going to CNN to decide whether to take with Wegovy or Ozempic. They're going to their doctor. So, do you need competing
Well,
commercials on
I mean,
CNN?
the point is like you don't know to ask for stuff sometimes. Sometimes you don't know there's a drug to treat your condition, right?
If your
Or
doctor's saying, "Hey, chubby, we need to put you on Ozempic or Wegovy," like your doctor's going to help you make that
Tim,
decision, right?
the pharmaceutical companies are just helping you do your own research, Tim. That's all they're doing.
Well, if you see those disclaimers, I don't know why anybody takes any drugs ever, but like, okay, I get it. No, I get it. And look, I know it's a complicated thing, but I see this captured regulated market and this perverse level of incentives that are driving me crazy, and I want to get it out there.
All right. Well, we can wrap up this discussion in the next segment because we are out of time for this one. But thanks again for joining us here on a Free Solution on WYSL. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. I want to keep this break super short, and I'm going to just jump right into a couple of the comments after the break.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll just get right back into it in a second.
Show's already going to be long. Look at that.
It is. All right, let's go in like 3 seconds. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Bearing O'Connor.
I'm still here, brother. And once again, thank you to the WYSL audience. Thank you to the people joining us live tonight. And thank you to the people that are going to be listening to us on YouTube, Spotify, and X at a later date. We appreciate all of you. We've got a pretty lively comment section. Kev, obviously the conspiracy theorist, me, saying our regulated, fixed prescription drug market is absurd and it's making us all poorer and dumber. Added the dumber part.
Dumber. Yeah,
but it's definitely making us poorer, man. But anyways, you had some comments that we want to get to, and I think that's
poorer or better living through pharmaceuticals. I don't know.
Arguably both.
Could be both. Yeah, definitely. At least one of those things.
Yeah.
So let's get to a couple of comments. Shelly says lobbying should be illegal, especially if there's a government contract involved. Tim, what do you think?
God, see, the First Amendment is the First Amendment, right? You have and free speech ain't free, bro. So should lobbying be illegal? I don't know. I like the take that you shouldn't be able to buy access to the government bids program. I like that notion. And certainly on some level, whether they're stating it or not in that fashion, that is exactly what they're doing. They're saying, cover these drugs on Medicare, cover these drugs on Medicare. And
right.
They're getting politicians to vote that way. They're buying political opinion. So it's a tough one.
Yeah. So like there's a fine line between like advocacy and like bribery.
Sure.
Because sometimes lobbying looks more like the latter than the former, right? Like, because lobbying, like when you write your congressman, you tell them to care about the national debt. That's also technically lobbying. Now, I know we don't think of it that way, but it's free speech, and you can like what the NRA does, also lobbying. Take away the donations, and like what they're trying to do is like convince people to like take their position and stuff, right? Now, like the donation side is like I get a little bit like grosser, but like people are still. Organizations are free to like donate to the politicians that they think are going to be the best advance their causes. And I'm not on the lefty side with this one in terms of like we should ban that sort of like donations, because again, if people want to get together, donate to a PAC or an advocacy organization and then have them like put more money into the campaigns that like are going to advance those causes on a national level. To me, that is speech. That's I know people don't like Citizens United, but like that is kind of what speech is. It's like, okay, I'm going to give $10 to Gun Owners of America, and like they have a PAC. I don't know if they even have a PAC, but they have a PAC. Let's say they have a PAC, and they're going to donate it to like members of Congress or members of like the New York State Assembly that are going to best represent my positions because they've done the research and they know it. Like that's fine. Like that's ultimately what it comes down to. Again, when you look at like what some of the stuff's happening in the medical industry, It looks a lot more like bribery and regulatory capture, though, where they're like, okay, we're going to max out our donations to like all these folks. And we know by maxing our donation, we're going to get a meeting. And in that meeting that helps them get reelected, we're going to like make sure that the our drug is included in like these government contracts.
Sure.
And the solution to this is to have the government do less stuff, though, right? Like, because every
That is
time
a good solution.
when the
Absolutely.
government every time the government has to make a decision about buying something, which is anytime they're spending money, there's an opportunity for corrupt lobbying to happen.
Mhm.
Every single time. So if you want to get rid of that corruption, the government just needs to spend less money. It needs to create fewer opportunities for that sort of lobbying to take place, for that sort of very close to bribery situations from taking place.
Yeah, well, let me frame it to Shelley this way and see if she gets it. If I have something that is incredibly important to me, and I send a letter and a $25 donation to my congressman, like I can tell you that increases the likelihood of him reading my letter and responding to me directly because now I'm a supporter, not
Right.
just a constituent. And there,
Not just angry guy calling on the phone yelling at the intern.
right. My oldest daughter's mother worked for the Senator Seward for years. Okay. And she's like, yeah, if you want him to listen to you, send him a letter. He'll read it. If you really want him to listen to you, send him $25 and send him a letter. And believe me, he was a good guy. She was just making a point of,
Right.
there's a difference between a constituent and a supporter. And so, Kevin, what do you think about this? Mark Molinaro is my current representative to the U.S. House of Representatives. What I'm going to do is send Thomas Massey $100 and send the receipt to Mark Molinaro and be like, I could have sent this to you, but I asked you to start hanging out with him more, and you haven't. Like you're
the way
not
to do it.
covering any of his issues. I just want to be clear. And then post it all over Twitter. I have more followers than him. I get more likes on my posts. I get more likes on his posts. Like I can ratio that guy at will. It's
From Mark
absurd.
Molinaro.
Yeah. He's nobody on Twitter. Nobody. He's a nobody. Yeah, he's nobody.
Tim, on the other hand, kind of a big deal.
Well, I'm getting there, like
Yeah.
70,000 followers, 7,000 followers, whatever.
Yeah, eventually. It's off by a factor of 10. It's fine. You'll get there. So we'll get to a couple more of these. Cody Anderson says treating the problem greater than popping a pill.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, it's sometimes both though. Like I'm fine with that. Like I know some people are like, oh, like Ozempic, it's like cheating. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like it's like, yeah, you need to like get some fundamentals, but honestly, if it helps you solve a problem immediately, that's great.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm mostly like I'm kind of in between on this one where I'm just like, yeah, doctors and medical professionals should like work to like create healthy foundations for good living. And I'll tell you, like every medical professional I've talked to, like, and I had to talk to like a boatload this year because of my heart surgery, you're like, yeah, make sure you're eating healthy and like here's some specific information on eating healthy and here's how you do it. And they made me eat healthy in the hospital, which was awful. Like, God, the hospital food it was very healthy, but I did not like it.
All right. I love hospital food. It's a weird thing. I like when I go, I'm just like, I'm right to the cafeteria. You can ask anybody that's ever been in the hospital. They're like, where's Tim?
What is wrong with you?
Maybe it's because it's so healthy. I don't know.
It's healthy.
Maybe I don't know.
Like,
I was like, hospital food is the best.
I'm like, why doesn't this have flavor? And they're like, oh, there's no salt or fat in any of this. I'm like, oh, that's what makes food taste good, though.
Well, yeah, salt and fat.
You can't have salt or fat or sugar right after your surgery. I'm like, okay, so I got
that seems unfair.
Dry turkey. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess I'll eat. I mean, it's fine. It's just not fully my thing.
All right. And my anarchist buddy out there, you send letters to congressmen? That's lame. Get a hobby. I know. I knew.
Yeah,
like I feel like I deserve that.
Get lobby wow.
Get lobby wow. All right. I will. I'm getting there, man. He knows it. It's like every day I feel slightly more anarchist than the day before. Every day.
I mean, sometimes it works though. Sometimes you gotta You got to write your letters, and if you get
Sternly
enough
worded
people,
letters.
sternly worded,
Yeah. With a
convincingly
donation.
worded letters.
Yeah.
And then some intern will read them and like log them into a system. That's and then
Yeah.
you'll get a form letter back.
Yeah, and they'll send it right off to the FBI.
Yes.
I mean,
Not all of them. Those are special letters. No, I said it like, have I told you I used to intern for a congressman? I used to intern for Congressman Hanna.
yes.
You know who that is, yeah.
Yep.
So I was an intern down in DC during like the Tea Party protests, which was fun, and I was taking the phone calls and like reading the letters, and I would read all the letters and I'd summarize them, put them into the system.
Yeah.
And but like he did care about them. Like to be fair, like you would go over like, okay, what do we get in? What are people caring about? Like, but volume helps. And I worked as a staff assistant in the Auburn office too. But
well, I did a show with a guy who explained it to me like this. He's like, look, 20 crazy cat ladies are literally running the world because they write letters every single day to their congressperson. And that's all the congressperson has to go off of. Like they're making decisions based on those people.
Yeah. But
yeah, that's a good one.
chatting my congressman Monday.
He'd probably do it live on Facebook, maybe. Like,
yeah, there you go, man. Hey, look, I honestly like the face-to-face conversations with. I mean, you don't always get like the member, but like sometimes like their staff are just as good. Like legitimately, like don't knock it if you're talking to a staff person who's like their go-to person on like a specific issue. Like sometimes that's totally fine. Like they're going to be the ones that get like some of the congressmen are just like, all right, how do I feel about this? Tell me, what'd you learn? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Jared is actually talking to his congresswoman. This is out in Utah, Tuwele, Utah, and he's going to do it live on Facebook on Monday. I think it comes on around. I think it's around 5:00 here normally. So you guys check out Tuwele Happy Hour or follow my buddy Jared. He does actually get some very interesting people, just like Kevin and I. Like he does a good job presenting. He does a really good job of presenting local issues. He does a really good job talking to his congressperson. He talks to, I think I talked to a Senate candidate on his show once. 6:30 p.m. Yeah,
Mountain Time. All right, Jared, we'll look out for it, man.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good conversationalist. Kevin, how much time we got left now?
Like 5 minutes.
All right, we got to talk about the appeals court and Donald J. Trump and what's going on with his $453 million lawsuit that he lost to Letitia James. It is not looking good for the Attorney General of New York.
No. They're going to throw it out? What are they going to do? Tell me about it.
Well, it does look, in fact, like they are signaling some level of skepticism. During arguments that lasted more than an hour, the 5-judge panel on the appellate division, New York's mid-level appeals court, questioned whether any constraints apply to the law that New York Attorney General Letitia James used to sue Donald Trump. So this is the case where she accused him of defrauding bankers by inflating the values of his properties, where he went in and said, all right, well, I'd like to borrow $500 million on my $2 billion building. But here's the problem with the case. And this has always been the problem with the case. And when you and I talked about it in the past, it was a problem then. There's no victim here. Okay. Like the complaint was not filed by the bank. It was filed by the Attorney General. The argument that she used was that banking assets were devoted to Donald Trump that perhaps could have facilitated loans to other people because Donald Trump altered his net worth. The judges in this case are asking questions like, well, does the bank have any obligation to do due diligence? Is the bank complaining about this? Do they have, any uncontradicted testimony in the summary judgment? Like, did they rely on numbers or did they do any research themselves? There's a history that the law that she used to do this is basically a consumer protection kind of thing. Right. It's like not made to prosecute people like Donald Trump. It's made to protect people like Tim O'Connor who go to a bank and get taken advantage of. Like, so arguably, I do think that this would bring back a measure of sanity to. And look, I don't like Letitia Drains. I don't think that prosecution in particular made any sense at all. What do you think about that?
No, I don't think the prosecution in this case made sense. Again, I've been plenty critical of Donald Trump in his actions, but in this case, doesn't make sense. There's no victim. The banks are fine with it. They're like, what do we care? Like we got our money. Like we don't want to bring, they don't want to bring charges on it. So if that's the case, if there's no victim, no one cares. Like they probably did do their own research to figure out, like, yeah, this is probably fine. Like we're gonna make money off of this the way we structured it. And it's not gonna hurt like the other consumers that like they loan money to Donald Trump. It's not fractional reserve banking means that like it's not exactly a very fixed pie. Like it is, but like also it kind of isn't.
Right, and then they can always borrow money at the Fed window, right?
Exactly, right. Like
so
there's the banks, like they're not running out of money to loan out.
Yeah. So one of the questions,
at least not these banks.
Yeah, one of the comments that I found, particularly poignant was, does this law normally apply to equally sophisticated partners in such a manner? So, in other words, they're saying the bank is at least on equal footing with Donald Trump. And is this really the power? Is there a disproportionate power where someone got taken advantage of here? And arguably, how would you make the case? Like it was an absurd case. I don't know. I always called into question, like it was legitimately lawfare. How did they find the right judge who would rule the right way? And honestly, the judge was like, well, I've always hated Donald Trump and I've donated to his campaigns against him. It was like so obvious that it's like,
well, the judge didn't say that, Tim, to be fair. That was speculation on behalf of other folks, but
oh yeah, that's correct.
So
speculation is good enough for me.
Yeah, that's it. If it's good enough for Twitter, right? That's no. Oh, whatever. We're not gonna go down that road. But mostly because we're out of time for WYSL. So, thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Have a great night, WYSL audience. Take care. All right.
Yes, that is where Shelley and I officially met in person when Larry Sharp was trying to get his petitions validated at the Albany Appeals Court.
Albany Appeals Court. Right on.
Yeah. And so let's see. So we got into a pretty good discussion there about the big pharma stuff. And
we got a good amount covered there.
yeah.
So on that note, though, guys, we're not gonna do much after the show because already
what a stressful.
It's gonna be a nightmare to edit.
Yeah.
All right, but thanks for joining us. Thanks for like being in the comments and being active. Like again, y'all make the show a lot of fun. So like love that y'all are here.
Guys kept it afloat for the first 15 minutes there.
There you go.
So that would have been, I would have lost my flop sweat. It would have been awful. It would have been a mess.
All right. But again, thanks for being here. Have a good one.
Take care, guys.